Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of my monthly forecasts. If this is the first time you're seeing me, my name is Angela Peterson and I am a psychic medium and shamanic practitioner in Sedona, Arizona. I hope everybody had a lovely September. We are going to be looking at the overall energies for October, but I do want to mention, just like I did in the last video, that we are in eclipse season. So some of the energies of this month of October are definitely going to be influenced by the eclipse. We have another eclipse coming up on October 2nd, and this is a solar eclipse. The last eclipse we had on September 17th was a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are usually about endings. Solar eclipses can be about beginnings, but because this one is on the south node, it can be both energies. So this solar eclipse is going to be endings and beginnings. So it might be that some things are continuing to kind of clean up from the previous eclipse. Now the last eclipse was in Pisces, and this eclipse is in Libra, which are two of the most mutable signs. Both Libra and Pisces, I would say, are kind of similar in the way that they tend to default to some of the other signs. But especially when we come up on Libra, many Librans, and you know this if you are one, tend to be mediators. They tend to be the peacemakers. And so it's like, if you're happy, I'm happy, which means that a lot of Librans have a tendency to suppress their personal feelings. And this eclipse is highlighting where it's very important for us to find balance within ourselves and in our relationships to others so that everybody gets their needs met. Instead of suppressing our needs to keep the peace, this is about a greater balance of what does that really truly look like? What does that healthily look like within ourselves and then in our relationship to really everything outside of us. So relationships in every format, but especially we'll say close relationships and one-on-one, like romantic relationships and partnerships. Libra also relates to, they're the balancing of the scales, so they can relate to legalities and to the justice system. So again, there can be endings and beginnings where these things are concerned for us in our personal lives, but also on a greater scale. So around the equinox, actually no, I think it was actually on the equinox, that morning around 2:30 a.m., I was having a really hard time sleeping, and I kept having all these flashing images going through my mind, and it felt very, it felt chaotic and it felt disruptive, and I was, there was no way I was gonna get back to sleep, and so I got up to allow whatever it was that was trying to come in as a message to come through me. So I sat down and I wrote it out, and it was really, it was kind of intense, depending on, you know, what you're aware of that is going on globally and energetically. Depending on where you're at with that, it may be intense or it may be like, I've heard this before. But I think it's just kind of it's a reiteration, and it's emphasizing some things that we really do need to pay attention to right now for the future of our lives and the future of our planet. So I have typed up the message that came through. It did feel like I was dropped into the middle of a message, so it kind of just starts abruptly and it feels like it also kind of ends abruptly, and is just like in the middle somewhere of a greater message. But what prompted it is this, I just heard in my mind, the United States will no longer be united. And I just kept hearing that. I heard it like 3 times, and finally I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna get up out of bed and I'm gonna go, even though I was so exhausted, which is actually one of the best times because it kind of removes the ego. So it's the best time to get messages and information. So I did go and I wrote it down, but I did type it up as well, and I will link the I'll link the blog post underneath this video, so if anybody wants to read the message, they can, because I'm not going to read the whole message here. I'm just going to highlight some things that were brought through. So basically the gist of the overall message. Basically the message was that this election season is not going to look the way the elections from the past have looked. It's going to be different, and it's not going to be what people are expecting. Do I know exactly what that looks like? No, I do not. All I know is that this election is going to be a catalyst for major change, and they did say in the form of chaos. The reason for that being is because there are going to be a lot of people who are really unsettled, and there's going to be like upheaval and an uprising of people basically going against the federal government. And I think there are already a lot of people who are kind of doing that. But what it's looking like for the future of the United States is that it's no longer going to be the United States as we know it. There may be a huge split. I don't know if that means certain parts of the United States will create their own governments. I'm not really sure. So the biggest message in this is that really we can no longer rely on these greater powers outside of us, that they don't really have the power to assist us. And even if they do, it's not working, or they're not actually doing what it takes to help us. And so we as the people need to come together, and we need to start focusing on the constitutions nearest us, like in our towns and our cities with the locals. It's so important for us to really recognize that every single choice we make in our daily life is a vote. It is a vote for the future of our lives and the lives of just the earth and humanity in general. So I'm just gonna read this little snippet here where they said every choice you make in your individual lives is a vote put toward the future of humanity. So these votes, these choices that we make in our daily life have much more power than any ballot we fill out, any vote we cast for presidential or governmental elections. That is so small compared to the way that we live our lives and what it is we put our energy into. There's a very strong emphasis on the power that we have as individuals and whether or not we're using those powers. Are we actively making the changes that we want in our daily lives, or are we being passive? They do mention that passivity is a choice that we may not like the consequence of. So accountability for ourselves, taking responsibility for ourselves and like our immediate environment is crucial and critical to all of us right now. They do also go into talking about the toxicity that we continuously feed the earth, and many ways that we can lessen our impact because the earth can no longer tolerate what we are doing to her. And we need to take things more seriously, like mass consumerism, especially of things that, have plastic in them, anything that is not eco-friendly, that is harming the earth, and also the mass manufacturing and the overproduction of food and all of these things is depleting our soil, and we really only have like 48% of soil left on the earth. And at the rate that we are using it's dwindling so quickly that by like 2010, there will be little production of food compared to what it is now. So I encourage everybody to please read the message. I know that it's not a light and fluffy message, but that's not really where we're at right now when it comes to reality. And so we really do need to look at this head on and take accountability for ourselves and the ripple effect that we create. This message felt like it was a collective message. It felt like it was a combination of our consciousness and the consciousness of the angels or the ascended masters. And because they did say that we're not saying this to frighten you, but we're saying this to prepare you, and also to let you know that if you do make some of these choices and these changes in your life, you can soften the future that you're heading toward. That's where they're saying you have so much more power than you realize you do, and now is not the time to go into hopelessness or defeat anything like that. It's very important that we stand up in our leadership, and that's the other message that they brought through, is that many of us are going to be leaders in this new earth, new energy that we're moving into, and that we need to start right here in our local communities. We need to know ourselves better. We need to understand what our gifts are and what our weaknesses are. So our strengths and our weaknesses. And if we understand that, then we know what it is that we have to offer. And if we understand that about others, we also know what they have to offer. And so if we work together, because everybody has, right, their own individual role to play, but we need to focus on, like, what are my strengths? So how can I lead when it comes to what it is I have to offer? And it's very important for us to be in the energy of authenticity, and to work with people as best we can from a place of understanding, which is a Libran gift, right? So Libras tend to empathize with others. They tend to really understand others. And so in the endings and beginnings of things with the eclipse that's happening, it's about doing away with the illusions of independence, of thinking that we are separate from, and that we can just live in our kind of self-absorbed bubble without recognizing the greater impact, right? Or even recognizing that we do rely on each other. Like, our survival does literally depend on our resources and the resources around us. We can't survive without them, and we can't survive without each other. So there's a healthy side to this energy, and then there is also the release of whatever the negative energies of, self-absorption or independence, and letting that go so that we can step into a healthy way of relating in an interdependent world. And this does lead me into the main animal for the month, which is stag spirit. Now, stag is about leadership. The card says take the lead on it, but it's about the healthy form of leadership and really what that looks like. So part of the message is this month is actually going to highlight, well, I actually feel like September has also highlighted this in so many ways, is really the weaknesses where leadership in our country is really lacking, and leadership maybe even in our communities is really lacking, and where we need to shift that. What is it that needs to change in order for positive leadership to start taking place? Leaders lead by example. They walk their talk. They come from their place of wisdom and authenticity, and they also tend to be very courageous. So part of the challenge this month is to really stand in your power, like stand in what you truly believe in, and what you know is right, but not in a way that takes from others, or lacks compassion and understanding. So it's just like being clear, and you may gain a lot of clarity this month. This might be the month where you're like, okay, I know what my truth is, or I know what the truth is, and this is how I want to express this authentically, and this is how I'm going to stand my ground, while practicing my compassion and my understanding for other people. So the challenge of the stag is to really know your worth as well in whatever it is that you are standing your ground in, and trusting that spirit has your back. There's so much in this that we cannot control, and it's very important to move into the energy of surrender. And speaking of surrender, if any of you haven't watched the live Q&A, the spiritual tea time, I did have spiritual tea time with my friend and partner Breege Johansson, and we did record it and I posted it on my YouTube channel. So if you're interested, you can go and watch that. We did kind of look forward to the energies of the end of the year and gave some information of how to navigate the energies. We talked a lot about surrender and really what that is, practical ways of doing that, because surrender is not passive. It's actually just kind of releasing resistance and also trusting in a higher power. So this month, the energy of surrender, because we had with Stag Spirit, we have the spirit of the river coming out. And not only that, we have well spirit coming out. So we have two water elements, and this one is to trust the great mystery. And they're kind of a similar message in surrender and trust, that we might not know exactly what the future looks like, but what do we want it to look like? And can we have enough courage to stand and take a leadership role potentially in making a movement toward the future that we need and want? And then surrendering the outcome of that and having trust in a higher power that everything is going to fall into place the way that it needs to. So I'm going to share a couple more cards that I got because they're very significant. We have female relationships and male relationships, and they literally fell out of the deck together. So this is again just emphasizing the energy of relationships when it comes to this Libra solar eclipse. Solar eclipse energy tends to have a faded element to it. So a lot of times whatever is happening during an eclipse season can have long-term results, consequences or results, positive or negative, depending on what it is that's kind of happening, but faded endings and faded beginnings. So I feel like this has so much to do with our relationships, with the people that we want to spend our time with long term, and getting very clear about that. So at the very least, I definitely feel like this month is going to be a catalyst for clarity, for activation, a lot of activation coming in. And I definitely feel like activation of strengths, gifts, all of these things, but the opening really of the heart center, and the expression of our true authentic selves. There are going to be things that happen this month that are going to be motivators for you to actually make the changes in your life that you haven't yet made, or to really commit on a deeper level to those changes. There's going to be a lot of shadow coming up in the month of October, so please be mindful of that. Know that anything that you are not aware of about yourself could definitely be making itself known this month, especially with a solar eclipse. It does highlight where things are hidden in the shadows. Relationships may be challenging this month, but it is for your growth. So you must remember that. What is this relationship, or what is it mirroring to me? What is it that I need to learn? What are the boundaries I need to set? What is it that I need to share? And how can I make this situation more grounded and authentic? So basically, how do I be an adult? We are gonna need our maturity for sure in the month of October. So that's all I have for you in this version. I am going to do an extended version where I go more in depth to the energies week to week throughout October. So if you are interested in that, then the link is going to be posted below this video. And as for that, I wish you a very happy and balanced month of October. Take care.